Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155
from UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not?
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championship, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championship, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel de Leon, and as usual, I hope you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you're healthy during a major time of uncertainty. So yeah, wash your hands. Now, we got a UFC show coming up in just 5 days. In just 5 days, we have UFC Fight Night Woodley vs. Burns. And after months of speculation, after about 2 months of speculation, will there be a UFC event happening in the Las Vegas area? Obviously, there were events happening in the Jacksonville, Florida arena, in the ViaStar Memorial Arena, but now it's going to be changing. Finally, UFC has an event happening at their headquarters, being at the UFC Apex facility. About last week, there were discussions going on whether or not there's going to be an event happening in the Vegas area. Currently, right now, not just Florida, but multiple states are going for a reopening phase. Me living here currently in California will be opening their states last. And, you know, if California, if there's a chance that state could be reopening up sometime by the middle of June, and everything can be kind of back and running by the middle of June, and it's California, then I'm pretty sure every other state before then will be able to reopen up and kind of get things going with the sporting events. So far, for the National Basketball Association, they're planning to go do a basketball tournament in a secluded arena, either it'll be happening in the Florida area, Orlando, Florida, where they're going to have a basketball tournament happening there that could potentially start happening in the middle of June. So, things are reopening up across the country. A lot of states are going to be officially opening up by the middle of June. And if you look at the next major UFC event, it's going to be on June 6th. It's going to be June 6th. We don't know where the event is going to be at, but considering the fact that a lot of states will be opening up by the beginning of the first week of June, then we can definitely expect UFC 250 to definitely happen. But now let's talk about UFC Fight Night Woodley vs. Burns. This card was just officially made public just recently. We don't know when these fighters knew about their matchups. But coming in from the prelims to the main card here, we've got Chris Gutierrez versus Vince Morales, Louis Smolka versus Casey Kenny, Tim Elliott versus Brandon Royval, Jamal Hill versus Clitson Farless Dabru, Billy Quarantillo versus Spike Carlate, and the main event of the prelims here will be Caitlin Chookagian versus Antonia Shevchenko. That to me will be a huge fight. That'll be a really fun fight to watch. Chookagian versus Shevchenko. This really could go either way. Chookagian was a title contender at one point. She is on top of the rankings in the women's fight division. So if Shevchenko can win this thing, she can bypass her way to possibly buying her way into the top 5 of the women's fight rankings. So good for her for that. And in the main card, we've got another women's bout here. It's a women's story bout between Mackenzie Dern versus Hannah Cifers. That'll be a very close fight here. Dern will probably be coming into the fight as a favorite though, but we cannot doubt Hannah Cifers for being one of the toughest women in the entire division. Lightweight, we got Roosevelt Roberts versus Brock Weaver. For welterweight, we got Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Heavyweight co-main event bout here, we got Blagoy Ivanov versus Augusto Sakai. And for the welterweight, we got former champion Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns. Wow, that is gonna definitely be a barn burner here. I feel kind of dumb here considering the fact that I said that Gilbert Burns, I don't think he was gonna ever be matched up with Tyron Woodley. I really didn't, because Tyron Woodley's status as being a former champion, one of the best fighters in the division, who obviously he physically has all the tools to be one of, if not the best fighters of all of the UFC. the guy looks phenomenal shape. He has the speed, he has the wrestling, he has the striking ability, he has the power, he has the technique. Tyron Woodley, I always say this, including what Dana White says. This is what annoys a lot of people when it comes to Tyron Woodley, is that Tyron Woodley obviously has it. He has it. Like, he's got all the skills to be the best. It's just like he's just hard to deal with in terms of his attitude. It's just, oh man. Tyron Woodley is the guy who would pick and choose his fights because he really believes he's this like top of the line, future Hall of Fame worthy kind of fighter. But he's going to be matched up with Gilbert Burns here, and for a long time, Gilbert Burns was trying to challenge Tyron Woodley via Twitter, via Instagram, via interviews, saying that he thinks he should fight against former champion Tyron Woodley in order to climb himself up into the top 5 rankings. Because right now, Gilbert Burns is outside the top 5. He's outside the top 5. He just recently had a very impressive performance. I think about 2 months ago in the Brazil show. He had a very impressive performance 2 months ago, and now he's going to face against this former world champion in Tyron Woodley. Woodley's going to come in as the obvious favorite here. While Gilbert Burns was challenging Woodley, Tyron Woodley was responding to him via Twitter. It pretty much was Tyron Woodley saying, "Okay, Gilbert, I got bigger fish to fry." And I find that very interesting because Woodley's like, "Okay, I got bigger fish to fry, but I do not want to fight against, RDA. I do not want to fight against Colby Covington. I want a straight up title fight. I don't want to fight against Jorge Masvidal. I want a title fight immediately against Kamaru Usman." And although I'm always supportive of championship rematches, though, his bout between Kamaru Usman was so pathetic and bad that I can't see Dana White or any of the fight bookers to be like, "Oh yeah, Tyron Woodley, he definitely should get a rematch against Kamaru Usman." Because if that was a close bout, then yeah, I'd be like, okay, Tyron Woodley could have defeated Kamaru Usman in that bout. It just didn't go his way. Alright then, let's go for a rematch. But that didn't happen. Every single round, Kamaru Usman stomped Tyron Woodley. There were even rounds that went 29-28. I mean, that went 29-27. Or 30-28, because it was so unanimous who was the better fighter that night. And then Woodley will go and say, "Well, my mind wasn't in there, like I wasn't in the right mood, or I was dealing with an injury." Tyron Woodley, in his post-fight interview, and the way how he talks about himself after the fight, is proper him, like, not caring that much. He's like, "Hey man, I'm only here for the money. I want to go get the belt because it gets me the money," which is, it's perfectly fine. I understand that. But Woodley, how he carries himself, comes across as such like antagonistic and so cynical that you just don't want to cheer for him. I think he believes he has more clout than I think he believes he has a lot of clout in the organization, but not really. Also, he's more prioritized in like music, acting, and reporting because he works at TMZ. He's so dedicated to his like Tyron Woodley brand that exists. But let's just put that it exists. Alright? It exists. So Tyron Woodley, he's out there putting his brand out. He's been ignoring Gilbert Burns. So it astounds me that we're going to see Gilbert Burns versus Tyron Woodley here. And the way how I predict this fight would be, if Tyron Woodley is motivated in this fight, if Tyron Woodley actually goes into this fight caring that he wants to go win and dominate, and he's not going to fight super passive because he wants to extend his like fight career, then you know what? Woodley, he can go defeat Gilbert Burns. Easy, without a doubt. Tyron Woodley can defeat anybody in the welterweight division. Without a doubt. Now, whether or not Tyron Woodley is motivated to do so, I'm not really sure. But a motivated Tyron Woodley is one of the best fighters in the world. An unmotivated Tyron Woodley happens to be one of the most boring fighters you'll ever watch. And is straight up unlikable. And that's where Gilbert Burns comes in. Gilbert Burns is obviously going to have a good showing. He's going to definitely try to have a good showing against Tyron Woodley. I can see Gilbert Burns, like, if he can knock out Tyron Woodley, which I don't really expect him doing, but if he were to do so, without a doubt, Gilbert Burns slides his way into the top 5 of the welterweight division, and we could see potentially Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. That'll be a very fun matchup to go see. But, sadly right now, I gotta put my money on Tyron Woodley. Off the base of Tyron Woodley, his striking is a lot more prettier. His striking power is a lot more heavy. Even Gilbert Burns has heavy hands. There's been nobody who I've seen to have outpower strike Tyron Woodley ever in a UFC fight. I just don't see it happening. And Woodley's wrestling is one of the best in the entire welterweight division. I believe that Tyron Woodley could have out-wrestled Kamaru Usman in his bout against him, but once again, the injuries and also him being unmotivated, that stopped Tyron Woodley from out-wrestling Kamaru Usman, because Usman completely grappled the heck out of Tyron Woodley for all 5 rounds there. So, my personal pick in this fight would be, once again, Tyron Woodley when he's motivated, and unmotivated Tyron Woodley would make this main event fight really, really boring, and Gilbert Burns could potentially defeat Tyron Woodley if he's incredibly passive. I can see this fight go 5 rounds, Woodley fighting very safe, and Gilbert Burns is having more cumulative strikes. That's what I see. But Tyron Woodley stopping Gilbert Burns in 1 round, going up 2. That's my prediction there. And so you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back after a short break here with some more MMA news.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And we are back. You're listening to the GSMC MMA Podcast. I'm your host, Arnel de Leon. And now that we know UFC will be making its big return to Las Vegas, what's going to change here? Because once again, coronavirus is still a huge issue. There's rumors going on about a second wave happening, though. But as of right now, that's just pure speculation. So this is being reported in by Ariel Helwani from ESPN. The title here being UFC stricter coronavirus testing on tap for the return of Las Vegas. The UFC is instituting stricter coronavirus testing guidelines ahead of its return to Las Vegas this weekend. The promotion sent a memo, which is obtained by ESPN, to the fighters competing on the Las Vegas card scheduled for Saturday. The event will be held at the UFC Apex Arena, which is located at UFC headquarters. Per sources, these are more detailed and stricter than the guidelines in place prior to the 3 shows in Jacksonville, Florida, earlier this month. MMAJunkie.com first reported the details of this memo. All athletes and fighters will now be required to take 2 COVID-19 antigen swab tests prior to competing, once upon checking into the athlete hotel and another time following Friday's official weigh-ins. Test 1. The UFC is requiring every person who is tested upon checking it to self-isolate within the hotel until they receive the results. This means they should not leave the athlete hotel or have physical contact with anyone other than the members of your camp until you have received your test result, the memo reads. The memo goes on to state that if the test result is negative, you may continue with your fight week activities. If your result is positive, you should remain in your hotel room and wait further instructions from UFC medical team, and possibly if you If you are tested positive, 100% guaranteed, you are not competing, you are not fighting, you will stay quarantined. During this time, no athletes or cornermen will be permitted to leave the athletic hotel without express prior approval from the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The memo reads, you also should not have physical contact with anyone other than members of your camp. If the test result is negative, the athlete and their corner may proceed to the event. If not, they'll have to await further instructions from the UFC medical team. Once again, probably your fight will be canceled, you'll be quarantined until you are, proven negative. Then you can go out there and then you can go with your normal lives without your paycheck. The memo also states that the UFC's Performance Institute will not be open for use during this time. It does not mention daily temperature checks or antibody testing, which occurred in Jacksonville, Florida. In addition, the UFC is asking fighters and cornermen to sign the HIPAA authorization form to allow specified testing labs to share the test results with the promotion. UFC 249 promotion's first event since the COVID-19 lockout was held on May 9 in Jacksonville, Florida. The athletes who competed on that card ended up taking 2 swab tests, but that wasn't the original plan. The reason for the second test, which occurred following the weigh-ins, was because the initial test results were not scheduled to arrive in time for the events. The fighters who competed on the subsequent two events on May 13 and 16 took only 1 swab test before competing. Ronaldo Jacare Souza, who was scheduled to compete on the May 9 event against Uriah Hall, and 2 of his cornermen were the only ones who tested positive. Per the UFC, Jacare Ronaldo Souza was removed from the card, as well as the hotel. Only his positive result was revealed. So we now know that Jacare Ronaldo Souza was tested positive, and good thing, because that was a PR disaster. That was the biggest speculation that was going on about the UFC and for the most part every other major sport out there. It's the what if. What if a fighter got tested and he got into the octagon and him and his cornerman interacted with everybody, interacted with the ring crew, shook hands with Dana White shook hands with the judges, Dana White goes back home, he touches his kids, he touches his wife, the kids touch another group of kids, a wife is hanging out with her friends, she touches her friends, the next thing you know, boom! PR disaster. Absolute worst case scenario for the UFC, and it looks really bad on them. And not only that, I think the reason why a lot of people are afraid of the UFC when it comes to continuing putting on their shows is the idea is that if they put on a show and something goes wrong, like Jacare Ronaldo Souza testing positive and competing, then it's a lot harder to make the case for all these other sporting events, considering the fact that the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, NFL is a lot more complicated with the organizing of their athletes. Considering that, UFC has about, let's say, 20 fighters, 20 fighters per card, 16 to 20 fighters per card, compared to the NBA, which has 15 athletes on the bench with their assistant coaches, with their trainers, with their medical team, like one NBA team, including their medical staff and the cornermen and their agents, trainers, all that stuff is more than just, one set of fighters in a UFC show. That's how complicated it is for other sporting events. And so if the UFC were to not have anything good happen in their event, something bad for their PR, fighter getting tested, then someone else being affected from the testing, then you know what? It might look bad on other organizations, and they won't be able to get their shows down. I remember in the post-fight interview that happened from UFC 249. So after UFC 249, a reporter asked Dana White, "Hey Dana, what does ESPN think about the situation with the UFC? What do they think about the fact that you were still able to go get a show going on?" And Dana White, with a big smile, with the glee in his voice, being like, "Oh man, the ESPN, they liked it. They're fine with it. They enjoyed it." According to Dana White, from what you can tell from his body language and what he's saying, and also what he has said, he did say that other sporting organizations were contacting the UFC when it came to organizing their events. And Dana White was such in a positive, happy mood about that. He was like, "Yeah, man. Not only did ESPN like the fact that we were able to do our show, other events and other organizations are asking us to give them advice on how to do stuff." Yeah. So that looked really good here. So that looked really good for the UFC. That was great PR. UFC was able to handle the testing. Everyone who goes into the building is tested. So it's not like Dana White is being reckless and he's afraid of getting fighters tested in order to, because he doesn't want to prevent shows from being canceled. No, these fighters are definitely being tested. Now there's, once again, rumors and speculation that not all fighters are being tested, but according to many sources, including like a fighter like Francis Ngannou and fight fans and analysts that I trust, they say, you know what, Dana White has been pushing for testing, and he's been telling everyone to go for testing as soon as the coronavirus hits. Like Francis Ngannou says, like Dana White is personally calling him and all the fighters, like, hey, you gotta get tested, make sure you're healthy, follow the guidelines, follow the regulations. So, yeah, UFC and the Dana White, they are definitely doing their best to make sure their shows go on without anything wrong happening. And for the next UFC show here, it's gonna be stricter. I don't mind the strictness. I really don't. I know Joe Rogan, like, he's upset with the strictness. He's like, why? Why do we need to be so strict about our rules? But yeah, I think the UFC will be perfectly fine with extra testing. They were able to get through the first wave of it at UFC 249. I can expect it going perfectly well for them at the UFC 250 show, which I'm pretty sure Dana White would love to have UFC 250 happen in the Apex facility, just because it's the 250th UFC numbered show, and it would be nice if that show were to happen at a UFC headquarters building. And I am so sure that UFC will definitely have their upcoming shows not be cancelled, because at this point now, it is also being reported in from ESPN, NBA in talks to resume play at Disney's ESPN Wide World of Sports complex. So, once again, if an organization a lot more bigger than the UFC, like the NBA, are able to go get private events happening in complex buildings in certain states, I'm pretty sure the UFC can definitely get their shows going on. NBA is a lot more complicated in how they do things. This is coming in from Brian Windhurst. He's a reporter from ESPN NBA. And NBA teams are seeking guidance on potential return rules. Teams asking if players can report directly to proposed neutral sites, including team cities. The NBA has entered the exploratory conversations with Walt Disney Company. And once again, Disney and ESPN are together. They oversee the UFC. So if the Disney Company are able to take the risk and have 16 NBA teams come into one building or come into one location, which is in the hundreds when it comes to like staff management and players and all the agents going on. If Disney and ESPN are fine overseeing something as complicated and as big as the National Basketball Association, with a lot more money in the line, with a lot more bigger names in the line, because unlike the UFC, NBA is full on forward about player movement and players taking control of their own careers. It's because they also have a union, so that's why they can get away with more stuff. But if the NBA can get away with doing an event happening at a closed event under guidance of Disney, I don't see why the UFC can't. So you listen to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back after the short break here.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com health and wellness, or entering that promo code health and wellness.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. It is being reported in that Kamaru Usman's agent is up to Conor McGregor. He's offering him a title shot against the champion. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. There are so many fighters calling out other fighters, specifically Conor McGregor, that it's at this point it's hard for me to actually believe it now. I really don't. A lot of fighters, also Kamaru Usman has a tendency of doing this ever since winning the belt, of kind of being over dramatic and melodramatic. They're kind of playing the UFC game. They're trying to provide a narrative or a story or stir up controversy. So whenever I read something or there's a report going on, they're like, hey, Conor McGregor is being challenged by Nick Diaz. And all of a sudden, Nick Diaz is Conor McGregor. And Nick Diaz return for a UFC show coming up this week. It's so ridiculous. Don't see it. We've had Tyron Woodley versus Conor. Jorge Masvidal versus Conor. I've seen Wonder Boy Stephen Thompson against Conor McGregor being thrown out there I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Kamaru Usman versus Conor McGregor. That's not even an exciting fight to watch. I'm being honest with you. I like both fighters. It is stylistically those fighters fighting against one another wouldn't be a fun fight. It just wouldn't. So it is coming in from SB Nation, from BloodyElbow.com. That UFC fighter rankings, Henry Cejudo is removed from the bantamweight title. The bantamweight title is currently vacant. I'll be going over the rankings here, and there's a lot of things popping on my eye. So the UFC has updated its rankings following their 3 Jacksonville events, and the retired Henry Cejudo is currently out. Henry Cejudo he first vacated his flyweight belt, then he vacated his bantamweight belt. So as of right now, the bantamweight belt right now is currently vacated. Dana White, when asked about what's going to happen with the bantamweight belt going forward, he himself says, you know what, honestly, I don't know. This came out of left field. Not really. It kind of did. I'm not thinking about the bantamweight division right now. I'm thinking about how these upcoming UFC shows will go on right now. And I'm guessing once both America and all sporting events are back on track again, I can see Dana White then focusing his attention on the bantamweight division. But right now, him trying to organize the bantamweight division right now is just not his priority. It just isn't. It's easy for him to set up the rankings and the matchups, but as of right now, who is going to be competing for an interim bantamweight title or for the actual bantamweight title, we're unsure. With the UFC being able to pull off a return and stage 3 exciting events in 8 days, things are starting to get back to normal for the organization. One of those things is updating their official rankings. The biggest change comes in the bantamweight division, which becomes the second weight class, where the belt is now vacant. There were also lots of changes at 145 and 205 pounds, along with everyone moving up a spot at the pound-for-pound rankings. List due to the removal of former 2-division champion Henry Cejudo. Following his TKO victory over Dominic Cruz at UFC 249, Henry Cejudo stated that he hanging up his gloves and moving on. Whether that will remain, because we've seen a lot of fighters, leave and come back. I think Henry Cejudo is a man of his word. Leaving at pretty much his peak at 33 here. But it certainly leaves things open at bantamweight. Here's a look at all the moving and shaking coming out of Jacksonville. It is coming at the P4P rankings. As mentioned, everyone below Jones and Khabib Nurmagomedov moved up 1 spot with Cejudo out of the 3 spots. This allowed Francis Ngannou to enter the rankings at 15. So at the pound for pound rankings here, Francis Ngannou finally made it to the top 15. Congratulations to him. From the heavyweight, Derek Lewis moved up 1 spot into a tie for 4 with Junior Dos Santos for some reason. Derek Lewis moved up a spot? For what reason? Why? I feel like if you're in your spot, you stay in that spot unless somebody leaps over you. I don't get it, but Derek Lewis moved up. At light heavyweight, Glover Teixeira's big win over Anthony Smith shook things up. Corey Anderson is up 1 spot to 4. Teixeira is up 3 spots to 5. Smith drops 2 to 6. Volkan Ozdemir and Alexander Gustafsson are down 1 each to 7 and 8. Ryan Sven moves up 1 spot to 13. Then we got another fight here in Megomed to 14. At middleweight, we got Darren Till moves up 1 spot to 4, which is a tie to Yoel Romero. We got Krzysztof Jotko, who re-entered the rankings at 15 after defeating against Eric Anders. Jotko's performance against Anders was very well warranted, so congratulations for him, man, making the top 15 of the division. At welterweight, no changes. No. Because we got a lot of fighters giving out challenges. We're unsure what's happening. Gilbert Burns versus Tyron Woodley, that will definitely change up the rankings here. I can guarantee you, 100%. Gilbert Burns, if you're to defeat Tyron Woodley, we're going to see a bunch of random people, not really random, but a lot of top fighters just all of a sudden take interest in challenging against Gilbert Burns. Like Jorge Masvidal or Conor McGregor. It'd be very funny. At lightweight, we got Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is our new interim lightweight champion. Kevin Lee is up 1 to 8. How? What? Kevin Lee up 1 to 8? He lost to Charles Oliveira. Ally Quinta drops to 9. How did Kevin Lee move up? He has had a bad 4-fight streak happening here. Gregor Gillespie is up 3 to 11. Gillespie should be higher than Kevin Lee. To be honest, Donald Cerrone drops 1 to 13. So we went from 12 to 13 because his loss to Anthony Pettis. Drew Dober entered the rankings at 14 following a nice win over Alexander Hernandez. Beneil Dariush re-enters at 15. Dariush should... I felt like Dariush should have been ranked higher. But Alexander Hernandez, man, yeah, good for him. He's, Alexander Hernandez was always that fighter who, with a big mouth, who's been pushing for, like, a title fight next... Now, if you were to ask Alexander Hernandez, where do you see yourself in 2 years? He'd be like, oh, man, without a doubt, man, title fight. But now he's outside the rankings. Yeah. At featherweight, we got Calvin Kattar moves up 1 to 6 after stopping Jeremy Stephens. Frankie Edgar fell 1 to 7. That makes sense. Josh Emmett is up 1 to 8. Stephens fell 1 to 9. And Jeremy Stephens is still in the rankings somehow. I can't believe it. Arnold Allen is up to 11. Dan Ige rises 4 spots to a tie for 11. Dan Ige deserves to go up in the rankings after a close win over Edson Barboza. Jose Aldo falls 2 to 13. That's so weird. That's so... It's okay. I forgot. Jose Aldo also competes in the bantamweight division. I remember that. So Jose Aldo is, I think, is like number 4th rank. Is number 2 and number 4 rank in the bantamweight division, but he's number 13th in the featherweight. Ryan Hall and Sadiq Youssef drops 1 spot each to 14 and 15. Which I don't get, because Ryan Hall isn't even given matchups. How is a guy supposed to rank up in the rankings if he isn't even given up any enough fights to be able to go up in the rankings? What the heck? Ryan Hall won the Ultimate Fighter. What does Ryan Hall have to do around here to get himself some fights against some legitimate contenders here? Ryan Hall is one of the best grapplers in the entire featherweight division. He can grapple anybody in the entire division. Yet he's dropping down in rank. How? What does this man have to do to move up the rankings? I know Ryan Hall has said that Dana White doesn't like him personally, but still, reward a guy when he's a good fighter. At bantamweight, the title is vacant. Dominic Cruz moved up 1 spot to 11. I swear to there must be something wrong with these rankings here. There really must be. See, like, rankings like these is the reason why there's a lot of, like, ex-UFC fighters and even, like, journeyman fighters in the UFC who complain about the ranking system, because the rankings don't really make that much sense. You may tell me Dominic Cruz moved up a spot from being number 1 contender to being number 11. Let's think about that. So we had the number 12th ranked fighter go up in the rankings after losing a fight against the champion and bypassing 11 other fighters in the bantam. Oh my god! And then Cody Stamann drops 1 rank down to 12. Oh my god, it's just these rankings, man. They're very bothersome because they don't make sense. They really don't. Now, super fights and former champions making arguments. It's the reason why Tyron Woodley believes he should get a title fight because, because in Tyron Woodley's camp, you can imagine Tyron Woodley being like, "How the heck does this guy here, Dominic Cruz, get a title fight, but me, a recent champion, doesn't get one? What the heck?" You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back after the short break here, recounting the P4P rankings.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello, we are back. So I'm discussing the rankings for the UFC fighters here. It's very complicated and it doesn't make too much sense if you really think about it. But let's go to the flyweight division here when it comes to rankings. No champion in the flyweight division. No champion in the bantamweight division. No champion in the flyweight division. And Henry Cejudo is perfectly fine with this. He's like, you know what? I understand that what I'm doing right now is going to mess up 2 divisions, but I'm out. And Brandon Moreno moves up 1 spot to 3, dropping Juicy Formiga to 4, which doesn't even matter because we got no flyweight champion. We have no news of what to expect. I don't expect anything from both the bantamweight or the flyweight championship news happening until the whole coronavirus issue gets either goes down or America goes back to being normal again. There is so much happening right now in the world of sports that I don't see Dana White organizing the bantamweight or the flyweight divisions as of right now. I can see him organize them. I can see maybe 2-3 months from now, he'd be like, all right, so I know it's been months since we've had a bantamweight champion. I know it's even been more months since we had a flyweight champion, but finally, we are going to have short tournament happen. We're gonna have 2 fighters. It's gonna take. Oh my god, it's gonna take months for this to be cleared up and fixed up. Because as of right now, dude, bantamweight fighters and flyweight fighters, they're fighting, but they're unclear, but they're not sure of the status of the division. They really are not. So, women's pound for pound rankings: Claudia Gadelha is up 1-13 after a close win over Angela Hill. I really thought Angela Hill should have beat Cadell in that fight. Didn't happen. Juliana Pena fell 1-14. Nina Ansaroff is up 1 into a tie for 14 with Pena. Good job for Nina Ansaroff. I really felt like she really should deserve to go higher in the rankings. Women's bantamweight, we got Sarah Eubanks is up 1-14 after a solid victory. Nico Montano fell 1-15. Nico Montano, is she still fighting? I have no clue what happened to Nico. I just don't. Okay, I do know what happened. But then again, it's at the point now where it's just getting absolutely ridiculous what's up with Nico Montano's career. Sarah Eubanks, I can guarantee you, without a doubt, by the end of next year, Eubanks is going to move up with that top 10 in the rankings. Top 10, I say, in the next 2 years, number 6 or 7. Yeah, Sarah Eubanks, number 6 or 7 in the women's bantamweight rankings. I am that high on her. Women's flyweight rankings. Courtney Casey enters the rankings at 15 with a slick armbar win. I support that. Women's strawweight division here. We got Alexa Grasso is up 1-13, dropping Felice Herrick to 14. Angela Hill doesn't re-enter the rankings despite a very what? Angela Hill doesn't move up the rankings. What the heck? Really? Because that completely contradicts what's happening in the heavyweight division. What's going on here? No, Angela Hill she fought against a Game 6 ranked competitor. She fought against the number 6 ranked competitor, a former title contender, and Claudia Candela in a very close bout that could have gone either way if Candela and Angela Hill were to fight 100 times. I can guarantee you, Angela Hill would definitely win a whole lot of them. Now, it'll be close. How does... Oh my god, this astounds the heck out of me. How does Angela Hill not go back into the rankings after a performance? Alright, so let's take a step back. Let's look at the rankings right now for the women's start division. So Angela Hill, okay, if you look at her win-loss record, she's 7-8 in the UFC, which is really bad. For the UFC standards, that is really bad. Her being 7-8. But she was really close to defeating Claudia Candela. I know, close doesn't mean win though. But we've seen it in the rankings where fighters move up in the rankings just because they had an impressive performance. It has happened. When I was naming the rankings recently, the fighters were moving up and down the card. Dominic Cruz somehow went from being the number 12th ranked fighter to having the number 1 contendership fight against Henry Cejudo, then through losing, move up from 12 to 11. How does that make any logical sense? It doesn't. And then we have Angela Hill, who lost her fight, but she doesn't go back into the rankings. So who is currently... Amanda Ribas should be in the rankings. Amanda Ribas, she's 3-0 in the UFC. She's in a 3-fight win streak. Had 2 impressive performances against Mackenzie Dern and Randa Marcos. So what's going on here? Okay, so number 15, we got Carolina I can't say her. It's Carolina Kowalkiewicz. She's a Polish fighter, really pretty. She's in a 3-fight losing streak. Yet she's 15th ranked. Number 14th ranked fighter, Tisa Torres, who I like, is in a 3-fight losing streak also. So we have number 14 and number 15, both in a 3-fight losing streak, are higher in the rankings than Angela Hill. We have Alex Grasso, who is okay. So she lost against Carla Esparza. And by the way, that was unlike the Michelle Waterson fight, dude. That was Carla Esparza really definitively just being a better fighter than Alex Grasso. So she definitively lost against Carla Esparza. She defeated Carolina, who's Carolina right now is in a 3-fight win streak, and then she lost to Tatiana Suarez. So even her past 3 fights aren't all that impressive. You got Yan Xiaonan, who's what? Okay, so we got a fighter in Yan Xiaonan, who is 4-0 in the UFC, defeated Carolina, defeated Angela Hill, defeated against Sierra Kondo. So she defeated one fighter who is pretty much 15th rank. She defeated Angela Hill, who's number 18th rank, and at the time of beating her, doesn't really mean anything, and defeated against Sierra Kondo, who is also unranked. So how the heck is this fighter number 10th ranked then? Even Michelle Waterson, who is one of my who's one of my favorite fighters, she's number 9th for some reason when she really shouldn't be. Even Marina Rodriguez should be higher in the rankings over Carla Esparza. Over Michelle Waterson. Why is Michelle Waterson ranked so high after coming off 2 losses? I understand the 2 losses were, she lost against a very game Joanna Jędrzejczyk and a Carla Esparza fight that could have gotten either way. But even then, still doesn't make that much. How many times have I said the words, this doesn't make that much sense? Rose Namajunas. She's been gone for a while. Rose, she's been gone for a while. Is she one of the best fighters in the entire division? Heck yeah, she's one of the best fighters in the entire division. She can knock out everyone. She can knock out anyone in this division. Rose Namajunas is one of the only fighters in this entire division that can defeat Weili Zhang, Jessica Andrade, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. The top 4 here of Weili Zhang, Andrade, Namajunas, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, they are in a league of their own. I don't think there's any fighter outside of those outside the top 4 that can take those 4 on. But she hasn't competed But here's the unfair part. She hasn't competed in years. Why the heck is she still in the rankings? But they got like Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz hasn't competed in 4 years, but he's number 12th ranked in the freaking bantamweight division. No. Oh, man. It's very understandable as to why a lot of fighters are upset about rankings. Mackenzie Dern, she's 22 rank. How? This is, oh my gosh. And here's the interesting part. So, Mackenzie Dern and Hannah Cifers, they're fighting in the main card. In the next upcoming UFC show coming up in 5 days. They're 22 and 23 in the rankings. Why? How does that give them a main card fight? I like the both of them. They're both very talented fighters. I think they can compete with anyone from 5 through 10 in the rankings. But still, it's very consistent. Very, very inconsistent. Very inconsistent in the rankings here. Oh man. So, you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Coming back right after the short break here with sadly some sad news here. But, rankings, they're complicated. Even I don't understand them. Coming back after the short break here.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So we got some sad news here being reported in from MMAJiffy.com, with the headline being UFC veteran Brian Caraway requests donations for mother's funeral costs. Brian Caraway is calling on the MMA community to provide support at a difficult moment in his life. Caraway, a 10-fight UFC veteran, has opened a GoFundMe page to raise funds for his mother's funeral. According to Caraway, he's being put in a very strenuous financial position, as the impact from the coronavirus pandemic has filled up funeral homes and seemingly driven up prices. That is very dark. Can you imagine, there's some companies out there that are taking advantage of this virus and people being sick and are rising up prices? That's ridiculous. That is unethical. So, Brian here, he's attempting to reach a goal of 12,000 with more than 4,000 already being raised. Good for him. Caraway puts his message out on social media and detailed the challenges of this situation and how going to the public was his only option despite a reluctance to do so. This is coming in via his Instagram from Brian Caraway's GoFundMe thing. So it goes and say, the GoFundMe link is on my page. My mother passed away and the funeral homes are brutal. I had no idea how expensive they are and how much how much the gauge is hurting people. My mama means the world to me and was the strongest, toughest person I know. She has a heart of gold and only saw the good in people. She was a mom to so many. She was a mom to so many people and would give and do anything to help you. I'm completely devastated and can barely handle this. She did so much for everyone else. I just want her to have the best memorial and celebrate her life. I absolutely hate posting this in every way and hate asking for help, but if you can donate or share it would mean so much to me. Thank you for everyone. I love you all. P.S. Also, I'm selling pretty much everything or anything to pay, but the funeral home wants and needs the money now. I'm also left in charge of taking care of my disabled dad and handicapped nephew. Brian Caraway has competed just once since his final UFC appearance on November 2018, and he picked up a decision win at Battlefield FC2 in July 2019 and has been sidelined since. Fighting is obviously not the top priority for Brian Caraway at the moment, though. He said in a statement that he must also tend to his disabled dad and handicapped nephew while trying to sort out the ordeal of giving out his mother and appreciating send-off. So that's very strong. So I'm gonna go to the GoFundMe page myself. I want to see this. The good news that ever since, by the way, good job for MMA Junkie for reporting this. Awesome. Since the news was being reported, the funeral cost has raised. It went from $4,000 to essentially $9,000 out of his $12,000 goal. And we've got some time. We've also got a couple days to go, so I can definitely see the funeral costs. I can definitely see it being raised up. I can hopefully Caraway gets to his goal of $12,000. I really do so. That's really sad. I'm gonna donate myself. Actually, I'm gonna donate myself. This is actually really heartening to me. With this coronavirus pandemic, I'm not sure if her mother passed away from the coronavirus, but a lot of people have passed away. Thank goodness my parents are still alive. A lot of my friends, family members, they're talking about how their parents are panicking. A lot of the elders among my friends and family are panicking. They're incredibly afraid of this issue, even though there are a lot of young people out there in the 20s and 30s who can go to the beach, who can go on with the regular day-to-day lives with the coronavirus thing being an issue. But trust me, it's the older people who gotta think about it, the elders who gotta think about it here. And you know what? If you don't care about the elders, that's fine. I know it sounds strange. I always called my grandparents, my parents, elders. But if you don't really care about your elders, and it's a thing that happens in America where Americans don't really care about the elders that much, then you don't have to. Then you don't have to donate. You don't have to donate, and you don't have to think about them. You can think about yourself. You can go to the beach. You can have fun. You can do whatever you want. But it'd be really nice if you can think of others, and do your best to go help out anyone here, because the elders did pave the way for us. I know, there's us joking about okay boobers and stuff, but this is it'd be nice if if anyone who's listening to this, go to Brian Caraway's GoFundMe page. It's called Mama Caraway's Funeral Cost. Ever since the news has been reported, it doubled. About 210 people just donated. The last person to have donated at the time of recording was 22 minutes ago. Let me look at this right now. Yeah, in the past, okay, so I'm gonna say right now in the past 2 hours. In the past 2 hours, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and they're all donating some significant amounts here. We got someone here donating 75. We got people here donating multiple 50s. It's a good cause. I'm not the type of person who's like, if there's a good cause, if there's a good cause out there, go out there and help out. I mean, once in a while it is good to be kind of charitable at times, though. So if you haven't yet, help out Brian Caraway with his costs, because these fighters, they don't get paid that well. They really don't. But one fighter who's been going through struggle with handling when it comes to costs and the passing of a mother, we go to another fighter who's been going through some troubles lately, and it has been John Jones. So this has been reported in from MMAmedia.com that John Jones details UFC's unwillingness to pay up for Ngannou fights. I just feel like someone's put a cap on me. He goes on to say, the UFC clearly told me that they would redo my contract the day I went heavyweights, and it would be a different deal. So I've always held that in my back pocket, that my goal is to fight at light heavyweight for a long time until I got to a place where I've got nothing else to prove, and then retire as a heavyweight with some real big fights. We're just putting it all on the line against these guys that could cause some serious damage. John Jones told MMA Junkie's John Morgan. Thursday I found out that that's simply not happening, and it's upsetting. I feel like someone's put a little bit of a limit on my ceiling. This is John Jones talking about his super fight against Ngannou, which was thrown out there as a possible idea. A lot of people were talking about John Jones versus Ngannou being a real thing. But he goes on to say, I had a conversation with one of the higher-ups, and before we got into the money, it wasn't like I asked for too much money. It was just flat out no, right off the bat, John Jones said. Jones doesn't believe the current state of the UFC during the COVID-19 pandemic has anything to do with the promotion denying him of more money to fight Ngannou. They didn't say anything about a Gates or the pandemic or anything like that, John Jones says. They just said that they feel like they're taking care of me pretty good, and that if I want to make more money, inevitably my money will go up by fighting Francis and those more training fights. But that just wasn't the deal. Originally, they told me it would be a new contract if I went up to the heavyweight division. It was just in my plans to have my biggest fights towards the end of my career. Now I know that I'm not going to be making those kinds of jumps in my life. It just sucks because you feel like someone's put a cap on your capabilities, that someone put a cap on your possibilities. So that's John Jones talking about the UFC limiting how much financial money he can make right now. And I said this before, unionization. Unions. But the troublesome part, though, is unlike the NBA, NHL, MLB, NFL, those organizations, especially the NBA, those organizations have unions and players are united. There they are. There are a lot of players that are out for themselves, but because it's a team-oriented sport, communication and working with others is a vitally important part to your success in the NBA. If you lack the ability of developing social skills along with your teammates and create connections like LeBron James has, then there's or Chris Paul, then there's no way you can go really far ahead in your career in the NBA. And for mixed martial arts, because there's no union, like one reason why there's no union is because a lot of fighters are looking out for number one. It's not a team-based sport, it's an individual-based sport. And that's why I'm kind of happy about the Brian Caraway thing at the very least, actually, because there are fighters and there are fans out there that recognize, okay, in an organization where everyone is looking out for themselves, we can go and band together to help out this one person here. If John Jones isn't making the money that he wants, then he can definitely leave. He can leave if he wants to, or not, but it's his choice. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back after the short break.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And we are back. So as usual, I like to end all my podcasts being kind of educational here with trivia. Just coming in from FunTrivia.com here. I'm going to test your knowledge, your overall knowledge of both the world of mixed martial arts and the UFC here. How much do you know the fighters? How much do you know the history? Let's test it out. I got 10 questions for you guys. If you guys can answer it, then good job. You are definitely a person of culture. And so for the first question, George Rush St. Pierre lost his first title defense in which match? Was it A, his first match with Matt Hughes, B, his 2007 bout with Matt Serra, C, his 2008 rematch with Matt Serra, or D, his 1999 bout with Rashad Evans? The answer here is his 2007 bout with Matt Serra. George Rush St. Pierre was caught off guard and then knocked out in the first round of his first title defense against Matt Serra, who then pounded Rush into a verbal submission. Matt Serra was a huge underdog into the fight, and it's remembered as one of the biggest upsets in MMA history, and only 78% of people got that question correct. Question number 2, Mirko Cro Cop suffered his first MMA knockout loss in which match? Is it A, his 2004 fight with Kevin Randleman, B, his 2007 UFC bout with BJJ wizard Gabriel Gonzaga? Is it C, the final conflict absolute bout against the babyface assassin Josh Barnett? Or is it D, his 2005 super fight with Pride HW champion, heavyweight champion Fedor Emelianenko? The answer here is Mirko Cro Cop's first MMA knockout loss was against Kevin Randleman back in 2004. In 2004, Kevin Randleman floored Mirko Cro Cop with a devastating punch to the jaw, winning him an upset victory, one of the biggest upsets ever, also along with in UFC history, along with Gabriel Gonzaga knocking out Mirko Cro Cop. And only 43% of players have got that answer correct. So if you got the answer correct, you're smarter than 57% of people who took the quiz. Question number 3 here. BJ Penn beat Takanori Gomi by a rear naked choke in the third round in which main events? UFC, Pride, K1, or Rumble on the Rock? Once again, BJ Penn defeated Takanori Gomi by a rear naked choke in the third round in which main event? UFC, Pride, K1, or Rumble in the Rock? The answer here is Rumble in the Rock. BJ Penn's win over Takanori Gomi took place in Honolulu, Hawaii with the Rumble on the Rock organization. Not the UFC, but he was like double timing it at the same time though, so it's very so people mistake that. When people think, oh, BJ Penn, he defeated Gomi. Well, because BJ Penn was very active in the UFC at the same time, they thought Penn also defeated Gomi, but no, Penn was bouncing between organizations during the early 2000s. So he defeated Gomi while also being an active UFC competitor in a different organization. So 44% of players got that answered correct. Congratulations. Question number 4. Vitor, the Phenom Belfort, is from where? Where is Vitor Belfort from? It's obviously Brazil. I'm not even going to question that. Yeah, he's from Brazil. And yeah, I'm not going to really give a question on that because 89% of players got that answer correct. All these fighters, Matt Hughes, Sean Shirk, Joy St. Pierre, and BJ Penn, have all fought each other. True or false? Hughes, Sean Shirk, GSP, BJ Penn, yes, they all competed against each other in either the welterweights. Yeah, it was in the welterweight division where they all competed against each other. And it is true. They have all competed each other during the welterweight. And this was around from 2003 to 2008. What is Fedor Emelianenko's nickname? Is it the Last Emperor, the Fierce, the Fight Ender, or Enchu? I would love it if it was the Fight Ender, but it's the Last Emperor. 76% of people have got this question correct. Number 7, Kevin Randleman, Guy Masger, Renato Babalu Sobral, Alistair Overeem, and Vernon White all have what in common? They all train at Hammer House. They have all been knocked out by the Iceman Chuck Liddell. They all fought in the 2007 Pride Openweight GP. Or they have all lost to Fedor via armbar. And the answer here is they have all been knocked out by the Iceman Chuck Liddell. I don't believe Guy Masger, has he ever competed against Fedor Emelianenko? I'm not sure about that. I really am. But I remember, because in the UFC, in all the UFC games, whenever he picked Chuck Liddell, Goldberg always brings up Randleman, Meisger, Babalu Sobral, Alistair Overeem, and Vernon White. He always brings up those fighters for being knocked out by Chuck Liddell. Whenever he picks Chuck Liddell, they're like, oh man, Chuck Liddell, he knocked out this guy, this guy, this guy. So this question is pretty much straight out of the game here. Which one of these facts about MMA legend Vanderlei Silva is actually true? So, which of these is true? A. He lost a split decision to super heavyweight Mark Hunt. B. He knocked out Keith Jardine early in the second round. C. He earned his nickname from a town rumor about a murder. D. He was knocked out by Chuck Liddell. Which of these facts are actually true? I remember I took this quiz a while back actually, and the answer is that he lost in a split decision. Vanderlei Silva lost to a split decision victory to super heavyweight Mark Hunt. It happened. This was around 2004, I think. Yeah, Vanderlei Silva lost his 2004 war with Mark Hunt via decision. So now you know. Thiago Pitbull Alves knocked out. Only 43% of players knew that, which is very astounding to me. Only 43% of people knew that Mark Hunt and Vanderlei Silva fought, and Silva lost. So, next question. Thiago Pitbull Alves knocked out Matt Hughes in the second round in their first ever UFC meeting, and I remember this. Thiago Alves was jacked. So, did Thiago Alves defeat Matt Hughes? Yes. A lot of people know that Thiago Alves defeated Matt Hughes, because in every fight, Matt Hughes always looks like the bigger fighter. Matt Hughes looks way bigger than middleweight. He looks like he should fight a light heavyweight, but he really isn't. It's so strange. But Thiago Alves was roided up and jacked up to the grill. He looked absolutely ridiculous. He was obviously on. If you look at Thiago Alves when he fought against Matt Hughes, and Thiago Alves right now, two entirely different people. It's like Vitor Belfort and Overeem when they were all jacked and how they look right now. Like it's night and day. If you Google search Thiago Alves versus Matt Hughes, and you look at Alves and be like, oh my god, this guy's impressive. Wow. Kazushi Sakuraba, the Gracie Hunter Sakuraba, had his first UFC win against Hugh. Sakuraba had 1 fight in the UFC. UFC Japan. I think so. This UFC Japan was even before UFC 1. And so, who was the first and only person Sakuraba defeated? You guys should know this. And it is Marcus Silveira. Sakuraba defeats Silveira in UFC Japan via armbar in the first round, and it's all you saw of Sakuraba. If you got all 10 questions correct, then you are definitely a person of culture. But if you didn't, well, you know what? It's fine, because the average score for this test, for this 10-question quiz, is a 6 out of 10. It is a D. So, if you got a D, you're average in terms of you're an average person among your knowledge of the UFC. If you got 6 out of 10, if you got above that, you're above average. Congratulations! Go challenge your friends in that. Now you can go to your friends and brag about your knowledge of the world of mixed martial arts and be like, guess what? I'm an expert. You know why? Because I know that Sakuraba fought against Marcus Silveira in a UFC Japan show in the 90s. Yeah, that's definitely worth bragging about. But if you got all the questions correct, once again, awesome. Good job. So thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps out. Also, you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.